Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
The message to these big, faceless companies is you will be held accountable in British Columbia for the harm that you cause to people.
BC considers a law to go after social media companies for alleged harm, especially against kids. Plus,
I've had patients where I've done an exam, found a lump, looking for a diagnostic mammogram, and having to phone or get my staff to phone 3 or 4 different locations.
Patients and doctors in BC sound the alarm about growing wait times for specialized breast cancer tests. And
living together, you can share everything.
Moving back in. Amid high housing costs, many BC families are choosing to live with family.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. The BC government says it is time for a law to protect people from harmful products, particularly social media. The Premier and Attorney General are pledging to take legal action against tech companies whose algorithms can pose health and safety risks to children. As John Hernandez reports, BC is the latest to try to hold social media companies accountable for suicide, eating disorders, and other issues.
The message to these big, faceless companies is you will be held accountable in British Columbia for the harm that you cause to people.
A warning from BC's Premier to social media behemoths like Meta.
That British Columbia will pursue them for the costs of the harms that their products cause.
Legislation announced today is said to give the province the tools to fight back against companies, including big tech, whose products officials say are harming British Columbians, especially kids.
Some use particularly addictive algorithms to create a dependency on their apps and platforms that can lead to mental health problems, including experiencing symptoms of anxiety and depression.
Officials say the act would help them recover public costs from a slew of companies, from big tobacco to social media giants, whose products can ultimately lead to doctor's appointments, hospitalizations, even deaths.
They sell advertising, they enter into agreements with banks and receive payments and transfers to and from British Columbia and right across Canada. And yes, in short, we believe that there are mechanisms to hold them accountable here.
The basic effort with this is to kind of lift the game of social media, ensure that safety is at the forefront of their design. There's currently no laws that impose that.
In BC, there's been a growing number of suicides after youth were targeted by predators over social media. And experts warn the platform's designs and algorithms are also taking a wider toll on mental health.
There's design decisions like, why should you be able to, kids are using filters that, imagines what they look like with plastic surgery. All these design decisions are having an impact widespread on society, and it's pretty profound.
Impact's Laidlaw says could ultimately add up to hefty lawsuits against companies.
If kids are suffering from suicidal ideations, if they've, suffering from eating disorders, the healthcare costs can be enormous.
The province says it will also seek costs to educate on the dangers of these products to prevent more harm in the future. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Homicide investigators are on scene near UBC after a woman died inside a home within the university endowment lands.
A university campus, you never really expect something like this to happen, and it just doesn't feel like safe anymore. Like we were just talking about not taking the trash out alone anymore. Like we're all gonna be together when we go out to take out the trash. But it's just really tragic that something like this happened.
The RCMP says it responded to a call of a woman in medical distress just before midnight Wednesday. She later died. Police say they arrested a man and woman at the scene. Investigators are trying to identify the woman who's died. She's believed to be an adult associated with the home on Shortcut Road. 2 men have pleaded guilty to a dramatic car dealership robbery in Port Coquitlam in November of 2022. They've pleaded guilty to several counts of robbery and having a gun. RCMP say the 2 men were arrested after fleeing in a stolen vehicle. It crashed on Highway 1 after a police chase during rush hour. At the time, the RCMP said 4 armed suspects were being sought. They still haven't found 2 of them. The men that did plead guilty are in jail awaiting their next court date. Patients and doctors in this province are raising the alarm about growing wait times for diagnostic breast cancer screening. Those are critical tests for people who have already identified a potential issue. As Michelle Gassoub shows us, radiologists say it's a long-standing problem that's only getting worse.
Imagine being told by your doctor you have a lump in your breast or you're at a high risk for breast cancer, but then being told you'll have to wait weeks or months for your next test to find out more. That's the situation facing many people across BC. One patient we spoke to has 5 family members who have been diagnosed with breast cancer. So she gets screened every 6 months. She's now facing a year-long wait between appointments.
I'd obviously like to keep on my schedule because the radiologist has recommended this schedule as the best way to keep me safe, and I'm not able to do that. So I'm not super anxious. I'm upset that the system is like this because it's not just for me, it's for everybody.
It's important to understand which exams are being impacted. Starting around the age of around 40, many women go in for a screening mammogram. Now, if a lump or other concern is found, they'd be sent for a diagnostic mammogram. Those are the tests where doctors say they're seeing the delays.
I've had patients where I've done an exam, found a lump, looking for a diagnostic mammogram, and having to phone or get my staff to phone 3 or 4 different locations to get a reasonable time, because the first appointment that we're given is 6 months later, and this is with a palpable lump.
So what's behind this? The BC Radiological Society says it's a number of different things. A shortage of radiologists and breast imaging technologists, not enough new med students going into radiology, and financial challenges for clinics, which do most of the imaging in this province.
We're not producing enough radiologists or radiology residents to deal with our increasing medical imaging demands due to aging population, increasing population, and then just changes in practices where imaging is being ordered more.
The wait times aren't uniform across the province. Some patients say they've been able to access a diagnostic mammogram within weeks. Others say they're stuck waiting for months, but the calls from patients, family doctors, and radiologists is for BC to urgently increase capacity within the system. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
From health to housing. For some people, a sign of success is moving out of your family home. But now some in our province are choosing to move back in. As the CBC's Dan Burritt shows us, with BC's housing costs skyrocketing, many families are choosing to live with several generations to try to save some money.
Beautiful BC, where homes can easily cost over $1 million, even $2 million, and rent is typically the highest in Canada.
But here's one way some people are making housing more affordable.
Multi-generational homes. It's basically where grandparents, adult children, and grandkids live together. They might split mortgages, even groceries, and generally help each other out. So how does this help different families? And what can it look like?
When we talk about multi-generational households, it really isn't a failure to launch. It can and is a foundation to succeed for many.
For one family in Vancouver, it's meant building a second home in their Kitsilano backyard.
We're able to move into having a mortgage and be owners and not have to do rent anymore.
Mary Hine and her husband moved in 2 years ago and since had a daughter. Their mortgage is slightly higher than what they paid to rent a 1-bedroom apartment in 2020, and they get almost twice the space.
We're adding a tremendous amount of value back into our own land, being able to stay in our neighborhood, being able to stay relatively close to our work. This just seemed like a great option in terms of affordability.
So how did this happen? Well, Mary's parents live in a historic character home that they bought 25 years ago. And if homeowners in Vancouver retain these unique homes, the city has an incentive that allows them to add a smaller home known as an infill on the same property. So Mary and her husband got a loan to build their own 1,400 square foot home in her parents' backyard.
It was well worth the effort. You know, we're here to support, but we're not. We want to stay out of their lives when that makes sense.
What's that? Now, across Canada, homes shared by multiple generations 2 or more families, or one family living with unrelated people, grew by 45% in the last 20 years. That's about 1 million homes in 2021, when the most recent data is available. And there could be many reasons why.
Housing unaffordability, I think that an aging society comes into play. Immigrant culture, that we are a nation of immigrants, and as part of being that nation of immigrants, multi-generational households are really a way of living in the city.
Hi. Welcome in. Let's go.
The Singhs immigrated from Italy to Abbotsford in 2018. Now they own a home, enjoyed by 10 family members, and this is Cookie.
We are lucky we are living together. It's our culture also. Living together, you can share everything.
And that includes the adults splitting a hefty mortgage, bills and groceries, while Grandma helps care for the kids.
She's another mother for us, and she helped us when our mom was doing work.
Singh says his brother and uncle helped buy the home in 2021. Without family, owning a home in today's market as new immigrants would have felt
impossible, I think. It's a dream to own a home in BC.
And for others, multi-gen living has meant tearing down one home and building 2 units or more on the same lot.
Okay, bud, we're going inside. This is going to be your home one day. It's hard in the city to, for a single family to, to have a single detached home. It really is. So the pool of resources it made this achievable.
Chris's family built a duplex. He will live on one side, his wife's mother and brother in the other.
That's about getting everyone close together and having some square footage to raise this little guy.
He says he's looking forward to moving his family out of their 1-bedroom apartment.
It's going to be our room.
Now, multi-generational living isn't a new concept, but experts say current government initiatives mean we could see more of it.
For example, there's a federal tax credit. It provides a one-time 15% tax refund for renovation costs up to $50,000 for a secondary unit for a senior or someone living with a disability. In 2023, BC also introduced significant new legislation. Part of it is for small-scale housing, and it allows secondary units and laneway homes to be added on single-family lots across BC. And this builder says he's seeing a lot more interest in laneway homes.
So this is 400 square feet. This is the trend. This is how people are going to live in the future. And finances is the #1 driver people are doing this. For laneway houses, we have 11 on our books right now, and 9 of those 11 are for multi-generational.
So yes, there's lots of ways to live together and still have personal space, but multi-generational living may not be for everyone.
It can still be hard to find the right space or enough space that's affordable. There can be questions around privacy and how to share parking. But beyond the challenges, these families say it's one way to cut costs and build a foundation together. Benit Brach, CBC News, Vancouver.
Too many students, too little space. It is a growing problem plaguing schools across this province. Now, New Westminster school officials say they are at a crisis point. As Janella Hamilton reports, the district says it's already over capacity by hundreds of pupils.
Alexis Carr's daughter goes to École Kakite Elementary School in New Westminster, a school the district says is strained past capacity.
My husband and I have talked about of whether we would look at private school options. We've been hearing stories about parents, kids who haven't been able to get into the classes they're looking to get into, just really extreme overcrowding.
Almost all schools in New Westminster are bursting at the seams. The district says it's already over capacity by nearly 600 students this year. And without more space, projections show the district will be more than 2,200 students over capacity by 2037.
So we have the population growth that districts around us are seeing, in fact a little bit more. What's different here is that it's one of the most densely populated cities in Canada. It's one of the oldest cities in the province. So our school sites historically have been very, very small.
For now, the district has come up with short-term ways to help alleviate overcrowding, including the possibility of having some students travel outside their neighborhood to go to school and adding more portables.
They're not able to use the field anymore. She was a little bit upset about that because I know normally they'll play soccer there at lunchtime, so they're using up a lot of that space for additional portables.
Laura Kwong with the District Parent Advisory Council says a recent report shows there is not enough district-owned land to build new schools to meet growing enrollment needs. She says portables are not the solution and will cost the district hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Portables come out of operating funds, and those funds are barely enough to cover the costs of delivering public education. It's salaries, insurance, programming, maintenance, IT. That's what operating funds should be spent on.
The district plans to have a new 600-student elementary school open by 2027. It will be built on the same land as the Fraser River Middle School. But that project has yet to be approved by the province.
It's going to be a tough few years, and things are going to get a little bit more crowded.
Janella Hamilton, CBC News, New Westminster.
A motion from Victoria's mayor to ask the province to delay its crackdown on short-term rentals has been defeated. The mayor wanted the rules set to go into effect in May to be halted until the fall so operators can have one last summer to recoup some of their investments. Councillors who voted down the motion say they were elected to solve the city's housing crisis and claim any delays on tools meant to help with that were not appropriate. Reporter Chad Pawson was following this story and spoke with our Leanne Young about how other cities and towns are dealing with the new rules.
What's happening at Victoria's City Council today is they're supportive of the province's move, but they want it put back to November because they think that operators in their city will be too squeezed over this busy summer season to lose money and not be prepared for this. So they're sort of the latest city to ask, like, hey, province, maybe too fast on this. We have several communities, some in the interior, that have already asked for exemptions from this program from the province. We hear that that announcement's coming, whether they'll be allowed to be exempted. You can be exempted if you have a vacancy rate below 2%. So, you know, there's some back and forth going on here with this program that it's not quite a blanket fit for everybody.
Right, and speaking of not fitting into that blanket fit, a bit of an unexpected move, Tofino decided they wanted to opt into it, even though they're kind of a tourist town.
That's right, and there's a list of tourist destinations that are exempt from the program, but Tofino saying that its community is facing too much pressure around having appropriate housing. 25% of units are short-term rentals, 50% of single detached homes in Tofino are short-term rentals. The mayor there saying yesterday to us that it's just too much. We need to protect housing. We need to be part of this program. Now, he's getting pushback from people in his community who invested in properties for this vacation town that they wholly expected to run by the rules, have short-term rentals, supplement their income. So there's some tension in Tofino, but the mayor saying that our housing situation is too dire. We need to be part of this.
Still with housing, officials in one part of the Okanagan are threatening fines and legal action against a couple living in a tiny home they built on their rural property near Peachland. It's one of at least two cases where people living in non-traditional homes are being pushed to leave. As Brady Strachan tells us, the couple says they have nowhere else to go.
Got a couple of apple, a couple pear.
At first glance, Ryan King and his wife Lisa appear to be living the tiny home dream. They designed this tiny home themselves, nestled in their forested property near Peachland.
Kitchen, fridge, nice live edge tables that I milled up myself.
For 5 years, the couple and their dogs lived a peaceful and sustainable life here until the day they found a stop work order posted on their front door.
So I called up the regional district and said, hey, what's this all about? I'm not building, I've been living here for years. And the bylaw officer informed me that that's not allowed. And yeah, I have to comply immediately.
The issue, the district says the home doesn't meet building code, safety standards, or land use designations. And health officials classify their gray water discharge as domestic sewage. Now, the district has ordered King to remove the tiny home by the end of next month or face a $1,000 fine and legal action.
I definitely don't agree with it. It's like I've said before, I'm doing no harm to anyone around me. I don't think this is an environmental hazard. I think this is a very sustainable and reasonable way to live.
Not according to the district, however, which has issue with the way the tiny home was built.
They certainly need permits, they need to follow the BC building code, and they need to be done in a way that's safe for people and also for the environment.
So do you think that this home isn't safe for him and his wife?
Brady, I think that that's something that our staff have been working with for a couple of years now to try and ensure that whatever's built on that property is built with permits to ensure that they meet the BC Building Code.
The couple say they have nowhere to take their home and feel they're being forced off their land unnecessarily.
And the thought of it, given the deadline, you know, to be 8 weeks to be out of a place and you don't know where you're supposed to go, is mentally draining. I don't think they know what this does to people.
The homeowners feel the district's bylaws are outdated considering the current housing crisis and only serve to make more people homeless. Brady Strachan, CBC News, Kelowna.
Darius Madavi joins us now with a first look at the weather. Before we get to that, you've been following the way drought, and that's been a big topic this week, is impacting overnight fires. What's up with that?
Well, we got a new study out yesterday that was looking at how many fires across the U.S. and Canada are actually actively burning overnight, because conventional wisdom tells us that really fires are most active during the day, and then overnight they calm down a lot because of those lower temperatures, that higher humidity, and that gives firefighters, wildland firefighters, a chance to rest, in addition to, you know, giving people who are in the area that might be burned by those fires a bit of a reprieve from having to worry. But it turns out many of those fires, especially here in BC, do actually burn during those overnight periods, actively spreading. And that means that not only do wildland firefighters get not as much rest as they otherwise should, but also it's a lot more danger for people because it's not as easy to reach them and give them the information they need when those fires are burning overnight, when people are typically asleep. And this is a big problem when we have drought conditions like we have for the last couple of years here in BC. That really is the biggest predictor of when these big fires do burn overnight and when they are most dangerous. And in our last fire season, like the West Kelowna fire, the Shuswap fire, these are all big fires that burned overnight, and that was what made them so dangerous. And so as we head into the next year, we have looks like another bad drought season, at least that's how it's shaping up so far. It's going to be a big topic and something to keep an eye on because, again, they just become that much more dangerous. And even as the climate continues to change, we see more of these drought events. That's going to be the big predictor of when these fires are going to be especially dangerous. So a really good tool in the arsenal of these fire forecasters for figuring out when exactly we need to be on our guard. Now, if we take a look at our weather for now, fortunately, fire risk is low, although the temperatures are coming up. It's going to be very sunny, so it might feel not quite like that because it does feel a little bit like summer already. Even tonight, our lows have shot up quite a bit. The only negative we have here is at those higher elevations like by Whistler, but for the most part, we are quite a bit warmer than usual for our overnight lows. And as we look at our conditions for tomorrow across the South Coast and Vancouver Island, plenty of sunshine across the region. And as we go for the next few days, just clearing up more and more of that cloud. Those temperatures continue to climb anywhere from 5 to 10 degrees above normal for many of these regions. So expect a really, really nice forecast for the days ahead, including overnight tonight, where we have nothing but clear skies and sunshine as we head into tomorrow.
Okay, Darius, thanks very much.
Thanks, Dan.
Up next, more on our drought series. Some Gulf islands are especially vulnerable. One company that delivers water to areas that need it the most, and why it says it hopes it doesn't have to exist. Stick around. And hello to everyone tuning into our commercial-free live stream tonight. Concern is growing over the future of newspapers, the Journal Pioneer and the Guardian. The PEI papers are owned by Saltwire. That company announced yesterday it's filed for creditor protection amid major money challenges. The CBC's Steve Bruce now with local reaction.
Yeah, stepping up. Just a few years ago, people here in Summerside saw their local newspaper, the Journal Pioneer, go from a daily to a weekly paper. Now, the JP and the island's only remaining daily paper, the Guardian, are facing an uncertain future.
Yeah, it'll be a big loss if we happen to lose any of those papers.
Everybody's on their phone now, right? And but you read the newspaper and you want to sit and have your cup of coffee and share that story with a friend. We need that.
The newspaper's parent company, Saltwire, owns nearly 24 publications in Atlantic Canada. Court documents say the company is nearly $100 million in debt. Saltwire says it's closer to $60 million. Now the company is filing for creditor protection. That would give Saltwire time to restructure, pay down debts, or make arrangements with creditors to avoid bankruptcy. In a statement, the company said filing will help ensure its long-term sustainability. Though these Holland College journalism students say it's hard not to worry. This is just the latest example in Canada of local news outlets struggling to stay afloat.
It's already a delicate career field to get into, and it makes me wonder how many more journalism jobs will be available for graduates like myself who will be coming out with our diplomas next year.
Held or holds?
Their instructor is more optimistic. Brad Works used to be managing editor at Saltwire's 2 island papers.
People will always need information. The reality is it's an evolving industry. I know people like to say it's dying, but as long as people need information that's reliable, there will always be a need for journalism. It'll just take on a different form.
Back in Summerside, city councillors said today Saltwire's future is on their minds.
The value of a local newspaper is, it's astronomical in a small town like this, and we need our newspapers to be healthy.
No one from Saltwire has agreed to media interviews. At this point, it's not clear what, if any, impact the company's financial troubles will have on its 2 PEI newspapers or their staff. For now, the company says it is business as usual. Steve Bruce, CBC News, Charlottetown.
Throwback Thursday and dovetailing with our ongoing drought situation in BC. The Gulf Islands have long been an area that had suffered from a lack of water. Looking back to a story from 1987, people on Gano Island were finding many ways to adapt to the shortages that were getting worse every year.
Galiano is a pleasant place to live or visit, but in a province with abundant water supplies, it has very little. Diane Craig has lived here for several years, and sometimes water has been short, but not like this week.
So you started your day today by turning on the tap and nothing came out?
Nothing. Nothing.
Did you expect that?
Yeah. Well, this time of year it happens fairly regularly.
What do you do when that happens?
Borrow. Take your laundry with you. Go out for coffee. Keep 10-gallon jugs of water around, all that.
There's not much water on the island, and most people have only surface wells. This is a surface well, and it's dry. The owner relies on a tank connected to his house. He collects the rainwater from troughs on the roof, but there hasn't been any rain for days. Garrett Forrest dug a deep well and got water for a while, but it too ran dry. He believes that building cisterns and receptacles for storage is the answer. He has one in operation containing water pumped from a nearby swamp, but you can't drink it.
I feel if you only have to go 100 or 200 feet deep in a well, then it's okay, because if you've lost your investment or the well goes, then there's no problem. And actually, wells are really very good because they're maintenance. This has definitely more maintenance. You got to make sure about the bacteria and whatever, and you still have to lug drinking water.
This is one of the reservoirs on the island, a source for a number of homeowners. But it too is nearly dry. Even the lily pads are beginning to die. The tourists also cause a problem. Many stay at the provincial park and have no regard for for how much water they use.
And it's been more use, and everybody comes and they like to go in the salt chuck. And then when they come out, they like showers, which we haven't got, so they get under the tap, turn it on full force, and then it's overused.
The people here get pretty philosophical about the shortage of water. It's been going on for a long time, and it certainly is getting worse. And you talk to some of them, they might say, on this isle of sun and fun, we do not flush for number one. And that's pretty well how they feel about it. Bob Gillingham, CBC News on Gano Island.
Joining us now is Ronan Heitzman. He runs the Salt Spring Water Company, which pulls water from underground and distributes drinking water to areas considered more water vulnerable. Ronan, you've been doing this work for 12 years now. What have you noticed about water shortages on Salt Spring over the years?
Yes, well, you know, in the Gulf Islands, we have a regular summer drought. So there's dry, it's always dry for 3 or 4 months, and that sometimes gets exacerbated. And so some people's groundwater gets a little bit stressed, and a lot of people, purchase water for irrigation and other reasons in order to prevent stress on their wells.
Now, we're seeing weather patterns change because of climate change and other factors, certainly drier, hotter summers. What does that mean for water on the island going forward, do you think?
Yeah, well, we obviously need to be careful. And in the last few years, we've noticed I've noticed a bit of a shift in trends from, our typically dry summers and often dry falls. Lately, there's been a couple of years where we've had extra dry springs where our normal rainwater recharge that happens in the spring has disappeared, and that's added extra stress to the groundwater through the summer. So it's really important for all of us to learn to store our abundant winter rains that come, to use rainwater harvesting as an example, to be more conservative with our use, to manage our water better, and we'll get through these changing times.
On Salt Spring and other islands, what does that look like practically? More rain barrels? Do they need to build another reservoir? What do you think should happen?
Yeah, rain barrels, certainly help, but it's very minor. Usually like 3,000 gallon vertical storage tanks is an easy and cost-effective way to add significant storage to one's house, and that can be done relatively simply for non-potable purposes, for irrigating and things like that. And it can also be used for potable sources as well.
Given your experience in water in this line of work, as things get drier and perhaps water gets scarcer, do you think people need to be prepared to pay more for this precious resource?
No, I don't think people need to pay more. There is a cost involved with rain storage, for example, especially if one is doing rain storage for potable water. So it's like any kind of infrastructure. It's a different kind of infrastructure, and it can be made more affordable by appropriate and intelligent government regulation, to tell you the truth. Yeah. We need to incentivize this and to make it, easy for people to do and not make it difficult for people to do.
What do you mean by what would you specifically like the government to do to make it easier for people?
People use rainwater storage all over the world, so it doesn't need to be rocket science. It's a relatively simple thing to do, and we can make it easier for people to do that without being cost prohibitive. Mm-hmm.
And your business is quite reliant on drought conditions. How do you square that with the work on conservation and smart water policies?
I joke that I would love everyone to have enough storage so that I would go to business. But that doesn't seem to happen because there's always someone that needs some support with their water, whether it be, a well fails or a pump fails or there's a leak in someone's system. There's always something happening. So my business is a stopgap. I'm just here to support. So the more collectively we work to manage our winter resources better and store it and manage it appropriately, there's lots of water for everyone.
Ronan Heitzman with the Salt Spring Water Company. We appreciate your time and your expertise. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having me.
Records obtained by CBC News show Shoppers Drug Mart has medication review targets pharmacists call unethical, even though its president denies it. Our investigation is next.
Maybe you can't get that annoying pothole down the street fixed. Or your broken green bin lid needs to be repaired. You might need help dealing with one of the city's unofficial mascots. In all of those instances, Toronto wants to change the way you complain about city services, and a new pilot program aims to simplify the process.
One of the challenges, where do they go? Which division do they go to? Do they go to a division head?
Last year, 311 Toronto received 1.3 million contacts. Just under 500,000 of those were requests for service. So that puts this call center here at Metro Hall on the front line of responding to complaints from Toronto residents. Right now, if you call 311 with a complaint, the city's 44 divisions have their own way of handling it. Some divisions have multiple complaint systems.
It's not built with the residents in mind. So instead of 49 different unique nuances and ways of interacting with each division, there'll be one way, one City of Toronto.
Councillor Brad Bradford says the current system is in desperate need of change. It's frustrating for residents who often turn to their local councillor for help.
For most folks, it's as simple as when they pick up the phone to 311 and they place that complaint, they just want to see it resolved. That's all they're looking for. They shouldn't have to come to my office or another councillor's office to get that taken care of.
And he's no fan of the duplication of complaint systems.
Divisional silos are a very real thing. It often feels like an intractable problem. And, frankly, we need to do a better job of having people work across divisions, recognizing that there is only one taxpayer, that Torontonians are just looking for service and they don't really care where it's coming from.
A new committee at City Hall will dig into the pilot next week. Councillor Stephen Holliday leads that group.
The organization itself can learn right from the types of issues that people are complaining about. They expose areas for improvement or where there's gaps in the process, or maybe even gaps in the resources that people are asking for.
The pilot program started last month with 6 city divisions. It will expand to include more throughout the year. Sean Jeffords, CBC News, Toronto.
After 15 years of accusations, convictions, and appeals, former Quebec Judge Jacques Delisle has pleaded guilty to manslaughter in the death of his wife. But as Alison Northcott explains, there's still no agreement on what really happened in the case.
Jacques Delisle marked the end of his long legal saga by pleading guilty to manslaughter in the death of his wife, Nicole Rainville.
There's not this cloud over him anymore. That's certainly a relief.
It's been 15 years since Rainville, partially paralyzed from a stroke, died from a gunshot wound to the head. Delisle has always maintained her death was a suicide, but he was convicted of first-degree murder in 2012 and sentenced to life in prison. He appealed and lost.
How do you do?
Delisle later told the Fifth Estate and Radio-Canada that he gave his wife the loaded gun she used to kill herself, but that he didn't murder her.
There are innocent persons in prisons. You have one in front of you.
The federal justice minister ordered a new trial in 2021, citing a likely miscarriage of justice. After nearly 9 years in prison, Delisle was released. In this latest court appearance, the Crown and defense didn't agree on what happened that day, but did agree on a guilty plea to the lesser charge and a sentence, time served plus a day.
The charge that I thought was more appropriate was assisting suicide. But it was not accepted.
Prosecutors say they still believe the original murder conviction is closer to the truth, but say the case has gone on long enough.
He spent almost 9 years in prison, 88 years old. We do not believe that we will have been able to stand trial.
I've always thought it unfortunate this case was ever prosecuted in the first place.
Lawyer James Lockyer took on Delisle's case after he lost his appeals.
Whilst today has an unsatisfactory tinge to it, it's nevertheless a day that enables Mr. Delisle and his family to get back to normalcy.
Delisle's one-day sentence lasted only a few hours. By the end of the afternoon, he was free. Alison Northcott, CBC News, Montreal.
CBC News recently investigated reports about pharmacists at Shoppers Drug Mart facing pressure to bill for medication reviews. Pharmacists would go over prescriptions with patients, and the province would be billed for that service. The pharmacy chain's president denied setting targets for staff to bill, but as Angelina King reports, internal records show it does.
Current and former Shoppers Drug Mart pharmacy owners are speaking out. Their issue, this comment.
So we don't have targets or any other kind of element like that.
The president of the company firmly denying accusations of targets for billable medication reviews just last month. But more than a dozen current and former Shoppers pharmacists have told us a very different story.
It was really disturbing to us as associate owners to hear that.
CBC News isn't identifying the pharmacists because they fear reprisal for speaking out. We aren't using their real voices either.
I was very angry because this is not the truth.
He knows full well that they're in place.
But they all had the same thing to say. Shoppers leadership does pressure them to meet targets, and not just for medication reviews.
We have brought this up many times starting last year, that there shouldn't be any targets or quotas when it comes to professional services.
Most professional services like medication reviews and prescribing for minor ailments are billed to the provincial government. Internal documents from across the country obtained by CBC News show weekly and yearly plans for how much money pharmacies are expected to bring in from professional services, and pressure from higher-ups to hit those numbers. Like this January email from a district manager stating, "I am writing to express my deep disappointment in our team's performance during the first week of 2024. Despite clear plans and expectations, it is evident that we fell significantly short of our targets. I expect each team member to reflect on the reasons for this deviation from our plans and be prepared for immediate improvement." CBC News requested another interview with the president of Shoppers. We were told he was unavailable, and the company stands by his previous remarks. It also said it's reinforcing mandatory training on the appropriate use of pharmacy metrics and how to communicate with pharmacy owners and their teams, and that its role is to help owners by working with them on a yearly plan to deliver professional services. But current and former owners say while they support providing these services, they have zero say in that yearly plan.
It is totally unethical to have targets.
And this issue has caught the attention of Ontario's regulatory body for pharmacists. It says it's working on solutions. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Parts of Canada will experience a rare solar eclipse next month. How you can catch a glimpse safely. Stick around.
Sydney has come down with a bout of curling fever, but nowhere more so than at the Sydney Curling Club. Fans of the sport have been showing up in droves this week as excitement builds for the World Women's Curling Championships beginning on Saturday.
I enjoy this, and any opportunity I have to meet the best curlers in the world, it's great.
Brent Denny started curling about 9 years ago. The retired firefighter created 2 signs to support Team Japan, which is practicing at the rink.
I had made up the signs that say "Give it your all," and with the team name on it, and the other one says "Good luck," just to give the Japanese team some support.
And what does the team think of their visit to Cape Breton so far?
So it's very warm pool club, and many people are so kind and so good crowd.
Team Japan arrived early so they wouldn't be jet-lagged for the tournament. So while they're here, they challenged the local men's team to go head-to-head.
Absolutely, we accepted. We're really excited about it, so we're going to play some practice games here with Team Japan.
This is the second major curling event held at Centre 200 in Sydney in recent years. In 2019, it also hosted the Scotties Tournament of Hearts. As the former president of the curling club, Stone says the sport's popularity is on the rise.
We're at a point now where we've almost doubled our membership since before the Scotties happened. So we're around just over 300 members, and we definitely took advantage of the opportunities the Scotties gave us, and hopefully we can do the same thing with the World Championship next week.
Destination Cape Breton says the Scotties pumped $9.6 million into the Cape Breton economy. The CEO says he's expecting the same return from this year's event, adding that nearby hotel rooms are completely booked.
So it's just at a time of year when there would be nothing else happening that would be able to replace that. So it's a huge boost for us.
The Sydney Curling Club is now looking for its own boost. In February, a record-breaking snowfall damaged the club's roof, but fortunately they were able to reopen.
So the fact that we did get to have a temporary fix in place and are back up and running just in time is just such a great feeling. It's really motivates you and shows that hard work does pay off and that we do have our community and support behind us.
And that hard work will continue as many of the club's members get ready for a busy week ahead, volunteering during the tournament. Erin Potty, CBC News, Sydney.
Parts of Canada are going to experience a total solar eclipse on April 8th, and anticipation is reaching a bit of a fever pitch ahead of the rare event. The moon will block out the sun for millions of people, but if you want to watch, you need protective gear. The CBC's Sarah Aldaba has more on how to catch a glimpse and keep it safe.
As you can hear, I'm very excited. It has been a long time that we prepared.
The planetarium in Montreal has recently given out over 285,000 pairs of glasses to kids in Montreal schools, and they have more to give away at Jean Drapeau Park the day of its eclipse viewing. People will need to wear them when looking directly at the sun, right up until the moment the moon completely covers it. That moment will be a sight to see without glasses.
It happens directly when the moon is exactly at the same diameter of the sun, and you will be able to see the corona of the sun, which is something very extraordinary to see, in fact.
Looking directly at the sun during the partial eclipse without glasses can damage your vision permanently. This is because the light from the sun is so strong it could damage the retina, the lining at the back of the eye responsible for sending images to the brain.
Unfortunately, there is no treatment for any form of damage done to the retina because of the sun. So avoidance is key.
People should make sure their glasses are almost completely opaque and that they don't have any scratches or tears. Experts say it's best to buy glasses that meet the international standard.
It is essential that you have ISO-approved sunglasses that will block all the harmful intensity of the sunlight. Just using your regular sunglasses is by far not enough.
The American Astronomical Society has an extensive list of trusted North American suppliers, and there are more local sources at eclipsequebec.ca. There are also places offering eclipse glasses for free. Montreal libraries, for example, will be giving them out as of March 18th. Sarah Aldaba, CBC News, Montreal.
Our science and climate specialist, Darius Mahdavi, joins us now with the forecast. Darius, do we get to see this eclipse?
Yeah, I think the most important line in there was parts of Canada. And guess what part of Canada is not going to see the eclipse?
Are you going to tell us?
Right here. Yeah. It's the path of totality. It runs right through parts of Ontario, PEI, Newfoundland, but here we might get the tiniest glimpse of it. Parts of southeastern BC will get to see a partial eclipse. Here in Vancouver, almost nothing, as the case for most of BC. So I've added a little sad face. That's us, Dan. So
Thanks for clarifying.
yeah, not great news. Not much point in talking much more about it because
let's
we're not
move
gonna
on,
see it.
okay?
Yeah. In other news, today is Pi Day, a fact that I forgot until right now. So usually I do a fun fact for radio, and I didn't get to use it there, so I'm going to quickly use it here. Pi is a very long number, 3.14159, blah, 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 blah. But the
you're not
blah,
gonna
blah,
finish
blah,
it?
blah, blah is important because it's both infinite and irrational, which means you can say any combination of numbers and it will be part of pi. So you can tell people that you can recite pi to 1,000,000 digits and it will be true. Just don't tell them that you're going to start at the beginning, because then you can do as much as you want. So say 1,000,000 nines. It's fine. It'll be there somewhere. Now, let's actually talk about the weather, what I'm actually here for. You'll see here that not much precipitation for the vast majority of BC. Really, that activity is still happening in the northwest. A little bit more snow coming over the next 12 to 24 hours, but after that, dry pretty much across the province, so not really anything to speak of there. In terms of temperature, so this is where the story is, they're going to continue coming up, with the exception of up in the very northern parts of the province, where they're going to come back down as some more cooler air moves in. But for the most part, very warm, very sunny over the next few days and into the next week. So nothing really to talk about there besides sunny conditions, a little bit of cloud that's going to clear out over the next few days. But here on the south coast, nothing but sun, nothing to clear out because there's no cloud already. So enjoy the warm weekend, everybody.
I guess we'll enjoy that without the eclipse. And with pie.
Yeah.
Bonus. Thanks, buddy.
Thanks, Dan.
An all-Filipino metal band from BC is vying to represent Canada in the largest metal music festival in the world. We're going to catch up with the group and see how they're headbanging a path to victory. Stick around.
Everything's gonna be quite alright, 'cause I've got one hand in my pocket, the other one is flicking a cigarette. What it all comes down to is I haven't got it all figured out just yet. 'Cause I got one hand in my pocket, the other one is giving a peace sign. I'm free but I'm focused, I'm green but I'm wise, I'm hard but I'm friendly.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
Join CBC Vancouver's Benit Braich at the Alumni UBC webinar, Build the Future with Gen Z, April 3rd. A panel of Gen Z UBC students and alumni will share their views and experiences about their cohort's values and aspirations, approaches to work, and more. And never miss a special programming series, event, or contest. Subscribe to CBC Vancouver's e-newsletter at cbc.ca/Vancouver Inbox.
Love it or hate it, you have to admit that metal music has passion, and the genre is becoming more diverse.
An all-Filipino band from here in Vancouver is vying to represent this country in the biggest metal music festival on earth. Our Ali Patarga sat down with them to find out where their passion for the metal comes from.
There is often a hint of surprise when I tell people I'm a metalhead. Metal is generally seen as a Eurocentric music genre dominated by Viking-like men with long hair and tattoos, and arguably it is. But it's getting more diverse than people think. It has a worldwide appeal. In my community, there is a thriving metal scene among Filipinos. The most prominent Filipino in metal is probably Kirk Hammett from Metallica. And there's Filipino-American bands like Death Angel. Then ones from the Philippines like Slapshock and Dahong Palay. But I was surprised to find that there is also a small but mighty Filipino metal community here in BC. Arrow in the Quiver is a 5-piece band who just won the BC Vaken Metal Battle, and they're competing to represent Canada at a competition taking place at the biggest metal music festival in the world, the Vaken Open Air Festival in Germany. They rehearse in this small studio in Vancouver. And it can get loud.
We are Arrow in the Quiver.
When people think of Filipinos and music, they usually think of music that you can belt out at karaoke.
Yeah.
But I just want to know...
He's also belting out sometimes.
Yes, and I do it too. I can belt out some Celine Dion if I want to. But I just want to know from each of you, why do you like metal? What is it about metal that impassions you as musicians?
To me, it's the energy. Like, we don't get to do this like on our daily lives. Like, all our frustrations from work or whatever, it gets poured onto this like kind of music.
Like that bond in a metal scene is just a bond that like I've never seen in other type of music, and I truly like appreciate that.
From an outside perspective that doesn't go in a metal show, it's actually pretty violent.
Yeah.
But actually, that's when you see a whole lot of camaraderie. When somebody falls, people pick them up.
You know that feeling when you're in that situation, when 4 or 5 of us play all together and showcasing our art, and especially with metal, you feel the energy, the crowd, the sound, you know, the adrenaline pumping into your veins. So that's the satisfying feeling ever for me.
I know exactly the kind of energy Uriah is talking about. Metal is not the easiest genre to get into. Listening to it for the first time can hit you like a wall, but once you get into it, immersing in the heaviness and the intensity of the music becomes a kind of catharsis.
You are going to represent Vancouver in the Canadian Vaken Metal Battle.
So much pressure.
How does that...
to the finals.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So how pumped are you?
I was literally pumped for like a week. I'm just coming down right now.
We as Filipinos, or Filipino Canadians that we are, coming here and we'll be representing Vancouver and have a chance to represent Canada actually in the Vaken Festival, which is like a congregation of the whole world, basically, of metal, you know. To play our passion is one thing, but to be able to be given the chance to represent the country that's like welcomed us is is a pretty good, it's a pretty humbling experience for us.
It is the biggest metal festival in the world.
Yeah, there you said it.
The Vakken Open Air Festival, and you get to meet a lot of your idols there, most likely, right?
Exactly. That itself, you know, that being said, that itself already is like, the thought of that is actually making me think that I'm already a winner. I guess music prevailed, so we're here.
Well, gentlemen, good luck, and I hope you go all the way.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Good luck to them. I didn't know Allie is a metalhead. Very cool.
She was so excited about that story.
Oh, I go.
It was
No,
awesome.
really? You could tell. It's awesome. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, the free app, as well as on YouTube, and of course our website, cbc.ca/BC.
We will have your next local news at 11 o'clock, right after the National. See you then.